The Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission has announced the commencement of the bidding process for 12 oil blocks recently listed for sale. It also signals the start of the 2024 Nigeria Petroleum Licensing Round and the resumption of the 2023 mini-bid round. The Commission's Chief Executive, Benga Komolafe, made this known in a statement on Monday. Last month, the Commission issued the first announcement on the bidding process. It also waived the signature bonus requirement in the bidding process to woo investors for the auctioned oil blocks. Komolafe said the National Data Repository of the NUPRC, in collaboration with multi-client partners, is committed to providing access to extensive and robust data sets to prospective bidders to enhance their decision-making. I'm now being joined by Kunle, a former special advisor to the Minister of Petroleum Resources and a seasoned project facilitator. Good evening, Mr. Kunle, and welcome to This Day Live.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ruben Abati. Compliment of the season.
Yes, same to you.
And well done.
Thank you. Well, before I go into the details of the licensing round for 2024 announced by the NUPRC, let's start with the removal of fuel subsidy, which was the major thing that President Tinubu did last year when he assumed office. He said fuel subsidy is gone. And there's been this lingering controversy about whether indeed we're still paying subsidy or not. And there are many Nigerians saying government is still subsidizing. And some government officials say, no, there is no subsidy. As an expert in that area, in the energy sector, what is the truth? What do you know?
Dr. Abati, thank you very much. This issue, you know, before President Tinubu took over government, I was among the forefront analysts and discussants involved in this problem of subsidy or no subsidy in Nigeria, including the forex management of the then central bank governor. Now, here we are, 1 year after. I think I have avoided, many people put pressure on me to come and talk about this fuel subsidy issue. And I said, no, let me watch how the new government was going to manage such very volatile decision. Because petroleum subsidy removal, it was a language coined by you people, the media, and the Nigerian political elites. It was deregulation and partial removal. Those of us who knows the gradual situation in which such exercise supposed to have been processed, we knew that that language was going to create confusion. When you say subsidy has been removed, subsidy has been, the petroleum marketing system was being finally deregulated. Subsidy was being partially removed. The word partial, because when President Tinubu made that pronouncement, it was those of us on the media with you that provoked that action. We were the ones saying, you can't continue with these two regimes. You have subsidy heavy in oil and gas. You have subsidy heavy in power. So we say you can't continue. And at the same time, the country wants subsidy for agriculture. So you are going to have so many subsidies. You need subsidy for health. You need subsidy for roads. You need subsidy for water. So we said, no, take away subsidy or deregulate the downstream completely of the petroleum industry and free the market there. So President Tinubu made that pronouncement, and then the heaven almost came down. That partial removal he did led to the adjustment of the price from about 180 naira per liter to 600. Okay, 500, 550, 600, even up to 680. Now, because of the uproar, the sentiment, the emotions, because the first president that we bailed the cat was President Tinubu. President Obasanjo tried it, but President Yar'Adua came and reversed it. So President Obasanjo almost succeeded in 2007 in deregulating the downstream, particularly PMS. So now that President Tinubu could not move an inch anymore because the uproar, the sentiment, the emotions, which we must recognize in a complex setting like ours, where the economic model was largely socialist economic system since 1973, when that big cancer was planted, 73, 74, Petroleum Equalization Fund, because it's good for us to follow the economic history of Nigeria. So when he could not move forward, I'm happy you give me this opportunity to explain. I've been avoiding it. President Tinubu could not move forward since July, August last year, because the uproar, even the elites, the economic elites of Nigeria and the political elites who concorded, who agreed that it was the right decision to take, they almost started joining the masses who claimed that they are the one enjoying the subsidy, which I don't believe. They were not enjoying any subsidy. We were living in denial. It was all superficial. So now he could not move. So the price have been hanging there at 650, 680. But that's not the actual price of petrol. So this is the issue. The actual price of petrol today should be about 1,250. So who paid the difference? So when they say the Minister of Finance took the gap quantum to the president, they started saying, oh, it's not this, it's not that. But that is the gap quantum that we emerged by December about that.
Mr. Kunle, this removal of fuel subsidy, IMF, World Bank, they have singled it out for special praise. Mr. Nonuga and other spokespersons, they've in many statements said fuel subsidy is gone. And as recently as maybe 2 weeks ago, we were told that in fact, government has been able to generate additional revenue, and the state governments that used to get about 700 billion naira as FAC allocation at the end of the month are now getting as much as 1.2 trillion naira as justification for the removal of fuel subsidy. No. And that, government is getting more revenue.
Dr. Abati, I'm so happy that you brought this issue. You see, Nigeria, the political economy of Nigeria and the current leadership is in a quagmire. We have what you are a social scientist, what you can describe as polycrisis. We are in a polycrisis in this country at the moment. The sudden quantum of revenue that you see that was recorded for the federation account, it is not true that it is emanating only from the regulation of PMS. No. It is emanating from the huge quantum of naira you were earning by now selling your dollar above 460. The then CBN governor was selling dollar officially and crediting government account at about 460. So when President Tinubu now made the decision to move, to open up the dollar market, the thing moved to about 1,200, 1,000, even 900 and something. So government, every $1 that central banks sell on behalf of government, we now earn so much naira into the federation account. So it was not from the oil deregulation alone that quantum of money emanated from. So this is part of the problem. This is why at times, in as much as we are unhappy as a country, I still want the leadership of the country to scientifically explain all these things. The leadership of Nigeria must try NNPC to explain some of these things. NNPC is 100% owned by government, Minister of Finance, Minister of Petroleum. They should explain all these things. I don't know why they cannot explain these things. So the Minister of Finance and the presidency, they must engage the country and say, look, come, this deregulation of PMS is partial. The real actual price of petrol, Dr. Abati, in Sierra Leone, petrol is about $2 per liter. The government is still careful in doing full deregulation because of the uproar. The World Bank and IMF will give you that quantum because they have the numbers in Ghana, in every part of Africa. So if they run it, you will see that petrol, PMS is supposed to be selling at about 1,280 naira today in this country. If you go by our exchange rate against maybe 60 cents of a dollar per liter. That is why the coming in of Dangote refinery will help to stabilize so as not to escalate further the crisis. But for people to think the PMS has been completely deregulated, no, it's partially deregulated.
Okay, Mr. Kunle, my big takeaway is that the federal government is confused about whatever they are doing in the downstream sector. And that results in, Nigerians asking more questions. But upstream sector, the regulator, the NUPRC, now says they are announcing the submission of bids for 12 blocks. Now, the last time they called for bids, I think for marginal fees, about 7 marginal fees or so. Or is it not marginal fees?
No, they are main block. But
they are main blocks,
yeah,
OPLs.
They are main offshore blocks.
Offshore, okay. So this time around, they are asking for bids offshore, continental shelf, and onshore. We have not concluded one process. We have started another one. So what is the real motivation here? Is it part of the reform process in the oil and gas sector, or we are just looking for revenue?
Dr. Abati, let me realign something. This interventionary conversation we have with people like you, some of us, is because we don't want to keep quiet and be looking at how leadership in Nigeria are making continuous mistake and continue to put us in this situation we are today. So that is why some of us talk. We are not talking because we are idle. It's because some of us have taken our time. We have sacrificed so much to read and learn and compare knowledge across the world. The downstream sector of the oil and gas in Nigeria has been destroyed. We have been made to believe that was how it was supposed to be wrong. But it has been wrongly managed for years. And I will justify this to you quickly. The upstream sector was largely dominated by international oil company on joint venture basis. So they were producing crude oil. We were selling, we were getting royalties, we were getting petroleum profit tax. So Nigeria was making money. But do you know, Dr. Abati, since the Doji boom, oil boom of Doji to date, all our gain in the upstream operations by the joint ventures, we have been wasting it in the midstream and downstream of this country. What is the midstream? Refineries, depots, and pipelines. So I'm coming to the issue now. So which means all the petrol stations owned in this country by private, built by private, today they are competing with federal government NNPC called petrol station. Can you imagine? After we had attempted to deregulate the downstream, NNPC still sat there and continued to eject cheap government money from upstream resources to build petrol stations across the country. Dr. Abati, if you add up today the number of tank farms, open tank farms owned by private sector, their capacity, their volumes, and you add up all the private petrol stations, including the one in my village, they are underground tank. If you add up the whole, and you go and subtract it from what government, from NNPC have used our money to do, you will now ask yourself, why is NNPC still involved in this business when private sector have borrowed money, some have even gone bankrupt to own all this? So the downstream, as you said, has been messed up. But not that I am out here to come and castigate government or to come and say no. What we are out to do in this conversation, I believe, which is what I think you are out for also, is to say, Mr. President Tinubu, please look critically into this sector and decouple this arrangement. Decouple it, because you have enough, as I use the word, which I know you believe, we have enough police crisis in the country. So why will you be involved in how kerosene, how LPG, how CNG is sold in Nigeria? To the extent now that they are even involved in how electricity meter in your house will be given to you. Who told you how to buy refrigerator? Who told you how to buy fridge, air conditioner for your house? Who told you how to buy the telephone handset? Is it not market that told you? So why will somebody go to federal government to go and use federal government money to buy meter for the house? You build a house of 20 million, meter of 100,000 naira. Now is the problem of federal government. Can you see the kind of system we are running? So that is the problem with our upstream, midstream, and downstream. All the refinery, all the petrol stations. So we go back. I will go back to bidding now. The issue of bidding, you know, Dr. Abati, let me tell you something. The confusion in the oil and gas sector in Nigeria is because many people, they just use the word oil, gas. They don't really know the details. They didn't take their time. Upstream Regulatory Commission today, as set up by the Petroleum Industry Act, is to create an enabling environment for acreage administration and for operators on joint venture, on sole risk, on production sharing contract, whichever of these modules that the asset is classified. That is the job of the Upstream Regulatory Commission in accordance with the Petroleum Industry Act. So when in 2021, they rush to do marginal field bid run, you saw how that one ended. Marginal was to encourage local investors to go into oil production participation, small field that big oil companies believe were not too big for them to bother about. So you saw how it ended. It was mismanaged again. Okay, but when this new current commission was inaugurated in 2021, and they needed to now put 7 offshore oil blocks on bid. That is from Badagry to Ondo. I mentioned it in one forum recently. Okay, about 7. They are deep offshore. Now, he was going ahead to do that. Then the former president, Buhari, said he will not give approval because a new government was coming. Now, look at the problem of Nigeria. We are the one that's supposed to be desperate to roll out all our oil acreages because the world is moving very fast. But here we are, the regulators say, oh, I am doing 7. Please approve for me to move on. You said, no, wait for the new government to come. Okay, the new government have come now 1 year after. They did not close that 7 oil blocks and say, okay, we have closed it based on what you were doing. You now say, no, add these 7 oil blocks to the new one you want to roll out, which means you are now carrying the uncompleted exercise plus the new exercise you have. I hope you understand me now. So the bid run that is on now is that 7 plus. Upstream Regulatory Commission did not engage me to do this, but this is for public interest. And this is to guide government, because we have 2 ministers of petroleum, 2 minister of state gas, minister of state petroleum. But I don't know, which I don't want to dabble into that politics. I don't know why the president will have 2 ministers in that ministry. I've gone there before and I saw that we could not function because President Yaradua was the minister. We could not function very well. So now here we are. We need to accelerate and fast track this exercise, this bid run. It's a Herculean task because the number now of acreages you are putting for bid is about 24.
Okay, so about 24.
Yeah, it's now, not a small assignment.
Who will come here to come and invest? And what is in it for us? Signature bonus. In those days, we will hear, oh, signature bonus. By the time we calculate, Nigeria will make some quick money. But this time around, Gbenga Komolafe's agency, they say they are waiving a signature bonus. Are they going to take performance bonds? I've looked at the document. what is in it for us? Immediate gain. And, I looked at the document again. This process will take like 5-6 years. And the Minister of Petroleum, Minister of State Petroleum, was saying Nigerians, within 18 months will be producing 500 million barrels of crude oil. Is this in pursuit of that minister's objective?
Yeah, Mr. Dr. Abati, there are too many issues. But let me clear one thing. The bid run, these 24 oil blocks, is for the global market. It's for global investors who still want to take risk to invest in fossil fuel. If you go by the atmosphere, the climate issues of the world today, you will see that it's a very critical period where, because before, during President Obasanjo and Yaradua, the whole world was coming to Nigeria to look for our oil. So now that the world is not looking for anybody's oil, the world, America is looking after their own oil. Saudi is looking after his own oil. Russia is looking after his own oil. China is looking after their own oil. So who is to come to line up for your crude oil? Nobody. So you have to create incentives. So I believe the regulator and President Tinubu, in fact, to engage governments, South Korea, China, G to G, and say, please come and invest. Because this signature bonus you mentioned now, it used to be a fee to show that that investor was very serious. You pay me signature bonus for me conceding this asset to you. So now that he reduced it, it has become a silent noise in the circle of government that, the regulator is shorting the revenue going to the treasury. You see, if you don't, $10 million is even already a disincentive. Because there are investors in the world who will say, why should I pay somebody $10 million before he give me an oil block for me to risk my money? So we must understand it very well. You cannot eat your cake and have it. I've said it in many fora. The era of thinking that your oil is a big asset for you is over. If you don't have technology, financial capital, managerial capital to look after your oil on your own, then you have to be on your knees to look for who will come and those who will come and look after your oil and gas for you will give you new conditions because they are going to risk the money of their country. And if they go by the ESG conditions, they will tell you that we are taking a risk on behalf of the owner of the money. So, Dr. Abati, it's a big issue that you and me should even be pressurizing government to accelerate decisions, to fast-track decisions, and stop thinking that we have all the luxuries of time on our side. This country is broke. We have no money.
Okay, in the document announcing the licensing round, there's a section devoted to incentives there. But what is the guarantee that those incentives will be attractive enough? At a time when many of these IOCs are either leaving Nigeria or they are going far offshore. Even Total Energies, the other day, that was said to have left for Angola, I think they are now talking to NNPC about Ubela Field, but that's deep offshore. So what is the guarantee that anybody wants to come here?
No, Dr. Abati, some of them will come when they see the attitude of government. You see, the 8 years of President Buhari was like nonchalant. I don't care. Okay, so they study the mood, the attitude, and they also felt, let us exit. Okay, but if they see that President Tinubu is businesslike and he is opening up, they will come. There are still low-hanging assets that are very good for companies like Total you mentioned, like Ajip, ENI. They have 245. OPL 245 is high prolific asset. So if you draw them nearer with good incentives, some of these incentives you see in that document, my brother, they are still going to negotiate it. They are not good enough. The fiscal regime guiding the offshore asset in this country is not attractive enough to the international oil companies. I'm not saying it on their behalf. This is the reality. You have seen it. Because they are comparing it with other locations, like Angola, like Mozambique, like Tanzania. They are comparing it. And let us be very sincere with ourselves, Dr. Abati. This NNPC, their attitude to business have sent away too many people, too many investors in this country.
Transition.
Yes, so
just moving from government oil company to a limited liability.
Exactly.
So that transition will take time.
It will take some time. So we need government now. We need Mr. President and the regulator to interface with these investors and say, gentlemen, please come. We are putting our house in order. Come. Put your condition on the table. Let's negotiate. This is business. Because if we don't do that, Dr. Abati, we don't manufacture rigs here. We don't even produce steel. Steel that you are going to use to assemble rigs and we don't. So don't let me dabble into steel now.
Your people in Ajaokuta may still a problem for Nigeria. At least your state is part of the problem.
On the lighter mood, thank you for even bringing. 2 weeks ago, I was in Italy, Dr. Abati, with the biggest steel machinery manufacturer in the world called Danieli, just 1 hour away from Venice. And this steel issue came up, and I want to correct one thing I said in your last interview with me, I think about 2 months ago or 2.5 on Ajaokuta Steel Complex. You know, I mentioned to you that coking coal blast furnace will be requiring loading of coking coal for upward of 5 years. In fact, it's upward of 20-25 years before shutdown and maintenance, depending on the capacity of the furnace. So, and I saw the dimension in which the steel industry is going, Dr. Abati. If I have the luxury of just 5 minutes,
no,
it's incredible, Dr. Abati. I felt so ashamed for my country. So I was like jumping when I was watching Aliko Dangote saying he was going to take on steel in Nigeria. Because what I saw in Italy, in Danieli's place, doctor, they are going to produce steel with nitrogen and hydrogen. You will not believe this very soon, with little gas. So, and here is my country. Ajaokuta is stranded. And as I'm talking, I am not political. I'm very technical in my mind. I'm very rational in my mind. I have not seen the concerted effort of this government. President Tinubu, I have not been able to sit down with him and say, Mr. President, your steel sector requires 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In fact, I will disclose openly here. I did a personal memo to the Minister of Steel, Dr. Ruben Abati. No reply. No reply.
Well,
because
I
put some things that I believe
maybe he's yet to receive the
no response. Yes, okay. I'm not holding him. But for you to know how much, so is another thing. Anyway. Like I have said, there is a poly crisis for us, and I don't know how we are going to meander through it.
I want to start rounding up now. Let's go back to what you said about Nigeria engaging government to government, China and South Korea. Why China and South Korea? That could create special additional geopolitical issues for us, particularly with the West.
Dr. Abati, you are bringing the geopolitical tension of the world into this dimension. But do you know we can't live without it? 1933, after the Great Depression, and then the crisis of the world came, and Second World War escalated, and the divide crystallized. It crystallized, and after the Second World War, the Cold War continued for almost 70 years. So we are back at a point again now that whether we like it or not, the divide cannot be removed in our lifetime. I'm telling you, because America and Western Europe must try to continue to maintain their supremacy. And at the same time, Russia and China can also not do away. So it's the responsibility of my country, of each country, to draw from where you want to draw. You have to sit down and rationalize. You have to bring people, intellectuals on table and say, let us rationalize. What am I taking from left? What am I taking from right to make my center? That is to make my country. So we don't need to fear. This is the age of knowledge. So Nigerian leaders should use knowledge to engage these people. All our children are in America, Canada, Western Europe. So can't you draw from them to see what you can put on ground in Nigeria? America and Britain, Western Europe, they will respect you when you see that you do that. Then you go east, China, and South Korea is part of Western world. Japan is part of Western world. Japan, they never invested money here because they are monitoring what America does. Japan don't invest in Nigeria. South Korea has never invested in Nigeria. This takes me, Dr. Abati, let me tell you, if I was in position of decision in this country, I will not give contract to Japanese company in LLNG. I will not. I will not give them, I will say if you don't come to repair Kaduna refinery and Porako refinery that was built by you, then you cannot participate in my LNG contract. The same thing with South Korea. South Korea was to invest money here. They were maltreated in the system and they left. South Korea took away 6 billion naira from this country, which they wanted to invest $6 billion into this country. They took it away to Northern England in 2007 because KNOC, Korean National Oil Corporation, was maltreated. So they left. So now, if our government, I will go government to government. Mr. President, I will go to China and say, please come and do this for me. I will give you all the conditions. Whatever I can take from America and from Europe, I take it. But you cannot just sit down and say, oh, there is divide in the world. Let me be careful. Don't go too much to right. Don't go too much to left. Why will you use your intelligent people to take this decision for you? You can't. Okay, see agriculture now. Where are we going to import food from if we cannot feed ourselves? If you cannot secure the country to produce enough food, so where will you import food? Okay. You will import food from Ukraine. Okay, you will import food from where? So we need to be rational, my brother. We need to use our intellectuals.
Okay, just one more thing, and then we'll wrap this up. Earlier on, you were talking about it doesn't make sense to have 2 ministers, in fact, 3 ministers of petroleum. The president is the main minister. There is Minister of State Oil. There is Minister of State Gas. And in the context of 1 year of Tinubu administration, people have been saying one of the things the president should do going forward is to reorganize his cabinet. So if we think 2 ministers in petroleum, they are surplus to requirement. What will you advise the president to do? Who should he drop between the 2?
Dr. Abati.
Lokobiri, who wants to give us 5 million barrels of crude oil in 18 months, or the other minister?
It's not, Dr. Abati, I don't want to personalize this conversation. Mr. Hennikin, the Minister of State Petroleum, the Minister of State Gas, is the political system that gave them assignment. But if I'm to rationalize what ought to be, 1 person should be Minister of Petroleum, since you have refused to decouple gas and oil. So just say 1 person, Minister of Energy. Minister of Energy, 1 person, report to the President. Or the President, don't put any Minister of State. Just say, Mr. President is the one in charge of energy, oil, gas, and power. So have advisor on power, advisor on oil and gas to work for you. But all these ministers is politically is okay, but economic wastages all over the place. Where will the minister get 5 million or 500 million barrels of oil to give you in 18 months? It is not doable. All these statements I read at times, I shake my head. It's not doable. Let's go to the field there. It's not doable. To even just manage our onshore asset alone is the problem. So the president, if Minister of Education is so important for a nation like ours, the president should be Minister of Education now. So why will a president like President Tinubu that has access to one of the best intelligent set of people in Nigeria, why will he not find 1 trusted person to be Minister of Petroleum? Dr. Abati, tell me. Why? That's even, but if he wants to be the Minister of Petroleum, let it be. He has all the power. After God in Nigeria is president, because the constitution of this country arrogates all the power to the president. So if the president is the Minister of Energy, no Minister of State, so he takes decision every day with his maybe 2 or 3 advisors. So I think our problem is that we have over-politicized the resources. And that is why we are where we are now. So
well,
I appreciate, and I think this is a continuous conversation.
On that note,
I appreciate, and I'm not being personal, I'm not against anybody. I hope the president or his aide will know that I'm not here to castigate any individual. It is the poly crisis we are running that creates all these things.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Dan Kunle, for joining us on Thursday Live, the Sunday Talk Show.